What's up everybody, it's Mr. Gaff here, and today we're going to be talking about comparing and contrasting. I even did my hair for this video so it wasn't as distracting. It was a beast though. I had to use gel and something called a comb. What? Comb? No, that can't be right. So in this video we're going to talk about what comparing and contrasting is, how you go about doing it, and why it is so darn popular. So first, nope, just kidding. We're going to talk about what comparing and contrasting is. No doubt over the course of your educational career, a teacher has asked you to compare and contrast something. And you're probably like, what does that mean? When a teacher asks you to compare and contrast, that's just a fancy way of saying, how are these two things the same? And how are these two things different? So when we compare things, we try and figure out how two things are the same. When we contrast them, we try and figure out how two things are different. Comparing and contrasting is so popular because it's so flexible. Look at me, I'm compare and contrast. No, I can't even touch my toes, not gonna lie. Teachers like to use it because it shows how well you understand characters, setting, and even plot. You can be asked to compare and contrast two different characters, two different settings, two different poems maybe, two different stories. You can even be asked to compare and contrast the same character from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. How do they mature, grow? So let's talk about how you would attack a compare and contrast question. Now, the most famous way and the oldest way and still the best way is to use what's called a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram looks like this. And I'm going to shrink myself down. It's amazing, at even this size, my muscles are still gigantic. We represent the Lollipop Kid. That's a Wizard of Oz reference. For those of you who haven't seen it, I recommend it. So a Venn diagram looks like this. We have two circles on each side that intersect or overlap in the middle. We use the middle to put all the ways that these two things are the same. And we use the outside to put the ways that they are different. So let's get into a few examples about comparing and contrasting. Now in my examples, I'm going to use a lot of Harry Potter references. So, JK, not just kidding, but the actual writer, JK Rowling, please don't sue me. Or better yet, bring it! I'll come after you with everything I got! Which is about $63 in this roll of Scotch tape. So to start off with comparing and contrasting, I'm going to use a pretty simple example, and then we'll dive into how we can use it in literature after. But just to get the hang of it, let's start by doing sports. So I want to compare and contrast basketball and football. I like to start by comparing first, by figuring out the ways that they are similar. Both of them have 4 quarters. Both of them are played with a ball. In both of them, you can actually score 3 points. So we have 3 ways in which they are similar. I could go a little bit further, but for now I think that's good. So let's look at the ways they are similar and try to tease out some ways that they are different. Both of them have 4 quarters, but in football, quarters are 15 minutes long, where in basketball, they're 12 minutes long. You can score 3 points in each sport, but in basketball you hit a 3-pointer, and in football, a 3 is a field goal, right? In terms of the ball, well, a basketball is a basketball, right? You're supposed to dribble it. Whereas a football, you're either supposed to carry it or pass it. So that's a good, easy start to comparing and contrasting. Now let's kind of dive into some literature examples. Like I said, I want to use Harry Potter. I was going to do a spell, but it's kind of lame, so I'm not going to. Wingardium Leviosa! That's the one where you elevate, right? Whee. No sweat yet. Fantastic. So let's compare 2 of the main characters in Harry Potter. And if you haven't read the books yet, at least you've probably seen the movies. And if you haven't seen the movies, what are you doing? I'm kidding. But see the movies. So we're going to compare and contrast Ron and Hermione. So let's start by figuring out how these 2 characters are the same. Ron and Hermione are both really, really good friends with Harry Potter. They both go to Hogwarts, and they both belong to Gryffindor. Now I picked these 2 characters because they have very different personalities. So while they share a lot in the middle, they're very different when it comes to their individual selves. They're in a lot of the same situations together, but it's interesting to figure out how they react to those situations based on their traits. Character traits go a long way in comparing and contrasting 2 different characters. So now that we've compared them, let's contrast them. Yeah! Well, first let's start with their general personality. Hermione is very serious and a very serious student, where Ron is a little bit more of a jokester and not quite as academically inclined, let's say. Whenever they're faced with a challenge, Hermione loves to come up with a plan and to really use her brain to think about it. Whereas Ron is a little bit more impulsive, which means he likes to jump right in and think later. Also, while they're both really good friends with Harry, their family and home lives are very different. Hermione, we don't really hear a lot about her parents in the story. We know that they're dentists, but we don't know that much else about them other than that they are Muggle. Whereas Ron's family is a huge part of the story. They're important characters that we see a lot. His sister, his twin brothers, his mom, his dad are all huge parts of the story, and they are all wizards. Unlike Hermione's family, we could write a lot about how these two characters are the same and also how they are different. This is where the Venn diagram really helps. It helps us organize our thoughts, so now we can take these bullet points and we can write about it. So when you're comparing and contrasting, remember it's just a very fancy way of saying how are these two things the same, or compare, and how are these two things different, contrasting. Okay, everybody, stay safe, have fun. I'm gonna go solve the mystery of the comb. The comb.